All right. Heavenly Father, thank you for letting us come together tonight. We're so grateful for the opportunity.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Call this meeting to order. Begin with public comments, and I have just one. Terry Williams.
Terry Williams, 5034 Loma Linda Lane, Charlotte. I appreciate the time to address the council this evening. Just been watching the NCDOT Idlewild, and we're heavily vested in that corridor. Just wanted to share a few thoughts. I did send an email if you had a chance to read it, so I'll be very brief, just to go through that. When I was listening last week, a couple weeks ago, I'm a little concerned that the current traffic study the NCDOT is using may not reflect the current restrictions that we have on development on the corridor, and there might not be as much traffic generated from the future development as was anticipated. I was heavily involved when we were going through the UDO rewrite and all the text amendments, and then when they were doing their traffic study, and a lot of that stuff was all happening at the same time, and it'd be worth just a second look to double check and make sure that what we have in there as far as trip generation is the most accurate counts we can have for what the town now expects to happen on the corridor. Again, the council's vision has changed, the small area plan has changed. I think some of that was taken into account, but then there were some text amendments to reduce the density of apartments and townhomes. And then further, there was some conditional uses for both apartments, townhomes, drive-throughs, convenience stores. I'm very familiar with all that because it directly impacted our property and restricted development rights, which again will reduce trip generation. As everyone's probably aware, there's currently no sewer capacity in the basin. Even when sewer capacity does come back in a couple years, it's going to be challenging for Union County Public Works to commit to serve all the Mecklenburg County portion that's in that corridor. And again, that's going to be another constraint on the amount of development that can happen on the corridor. Just to remind everyone, Stinson Farms is kind of on the hook through the development agreement to 4-lane Idlewild Road, all the way down to Stevens Mill, not through Stevens Mill. And if there were a way to separate, I heard the recent proposal of taking the money over to Lawyers Road. If there were a way to leave the money at the interchange and let the interchange get improved to get the traffic off and in, and then we'll probably already have in advance, because our project will come before NCDOT's, the 4-lane to let the traffic go down to Stevens Mill. It's starting to feel like there's just a good public portion, private portion that could come together and fix the problem that's out there. And we do have our consultant, our traffic engineers, more than willing to help and review studies and anything we can do to assist the town. We're all in favor of a nice 4-lane section that moves a lot of traffic through as best we can. And that's all I have. I'm here if you guys have any questions for me. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right, so I won't talk too much about what's going on. I just kind of want to give y'all a backstory before he comes up and makes his spiel. But so what basically is going on is we have someone here that is from Union County. He goes to CATA, if y'all are familiar with that. So crazy. But he is a Boy Scout right now. He's looking to continue and get his Eagle Scout. He actually has a proposed project to go on in one of our parks. I think it's really awesome that he kind of chose us. He's kind of told us that he had a little bit of a hard time finding somewhere, and we actually have an Eagle Scout full-time, Ryan Ridgway, if y'all know him. He is an Eagle Scout and did a project at Sun Valley High School. So I thought this would just be a perfect place, an opportunity for us to him give back to his community, and we really highlight somebody that lives in Union County that's close to home. So if he'd like to come up and introduce himself, I'll let him talk a little bit more about the project.
Hi, I'm Jacob Mitchell, and I'm terrified right now. Give me a minute to remember what I'm supposed to be saying.
You know what? We've all been there.
Yeah.
Scared to death at the podium.
So,
We're just as scared as you are. Since we recorded, the camera's pointing at us. Yeah, no problem.
so my project would be to build benches for Blair Mill Park. This is what I have is an image of the playground part of the park. I don't have any of the frisbee golf, but I'd like to put at least one of the 3 benches I plan on building near the playground, one off of the frisbee golf course, and the third one, I have no idea where I'm supposed to be putting it yet, and yeah.
We'll work on that.
Mm-hmm. So I have already submitted the project for approval by the Boy Scout Council. We're still waiting for that to get approved. Yeah, so this is similar to what the benches I would like to build are, where it is a basically flat platform and then the back part. But this image has 4 legs on it, and I more just want it to have 2 legs that are in the middle of the back of the bench. If you can't tell, I made this in Google Drawings, so it's not very good.
Is that your mother?
Yes.
Coach.
So the benches, I'm gonna build them out of pressure treated wood, with the legs being 2 4x4 posts that would be down 18 inches into the ground and then held in with concrete. And I would like to start work on the weekend of the 29th and 30th. That's all I have on my note card. If y'all have do y'all have any questions about it? Probably about 2 or 3 work days at most. Mid-December at the latest. I'd hope to be done by mid-November.
Oh,
Yes.
Larger question. Parks and Rec meeting, we talked about. This is where the plotter came in, kind of printing.
Yep, that's what we'll be doing tomorrow.
Thank you all for your time. Any other questions? Yes.
Verified to be, up there.
Thank you.
next up, presentation by a couple of Board of Ed members.
There we go. We're gonna go together.
So just hit the.
Haven't done this before. Last time I did it, I had to do it all by myself, so, no, you have to do this part. Because I don't have my reading glasses. Do you? Yeah, I can get this. You, record this? Okay, so I'll try and speak in this thing. Volume usually has never been my problem. Thank you for having us here. I had a long ways to go to get here. I'm down at the other end of the street, so it's a pleasure to be before you. This is my first time in your new meeting chambers, a very beautiful facility. Congratulations.
First time you've ever been on that side of the dais?
Yeah, that's right.
Very
way back when, before all this gray set in. Thank you for not taking my picture off the wall there. Anyway.
I'm gonna take a look at that one, so.
Yeah, won't recognize me. Yeah. Also a cat parent. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the upcoming election. We have a bond referendum for UCPS on the ballot November 8th, and I'd like to take a moment to give a little history and then go through the two projects that are on the bond. Next slides, please, sir. Back starting in 2000 to cope with the growth, particularly on the western part of the county, as David could attest, we went through major bond campaigns and construction. Marvin, Cuthbertson, elementary schools, including finally Stallings Elementary, and that was to mainly cope with the growth that exploded in Union County. In 2016, we had a major turn in that now we're in a process of what I call backfill. We're coming back after some of our oldest facilities and bringing them up to the same quality that our newer schools built on the west side currently enjoy. And 2016 was a major upfit, not a complete change or new school, but a major upfit in Sun Valley High School, new athletic facilities, cafeteria, classrooms, parking, reconfiguring the whole school. So that was the start of a 10-year plan that the Board of Education has devised to address these older schools. And on the ballot for November 8th is the total replacement of Forest Hills High School down in the Wingate, Marshville area, right off the tollway. I have to catch myself, I don't call it the bypass, it's a tollway. Forest Hills High School was originally built around 1960. If you've ever been inside the facility, it's showing its age. Parking is inadequate. Ventilation is not up to standards. Of course, it was not built with Wi-Fi or smart boards or other technology in mind back in those days. So we have already acquired the land behind the school, and with this bond campaign, if successful, we will actually do a full replacement of Forest Hills High School. Then the next phase on down the road, hopefully in the next bond campaign, will be the total refurbishment of the existing Forest Hills High School so we can move the middle school currently in Marshville, East Union Middle, into the refurbished old Forest Hills High School. Our plan is developed in various steps that build on each other so that an interruption in one of them would mean postponement of a lot of different projects. At Forest Hills High School, it's not cheap building a new high school these days. We've done our best to factor in the cost increases we've seen. We have an excellent facility staff, and they keep up with what's ongoing in the marketplace. The other project included in this bond campaign is the total upfit of East Elementary School, which is located in Monroe off of Franklin Street. That school, the oldest portion of it was actually built in 1952. Harry Truman was president. It was added on a new cafeteria in the, when was it, Matt? Late teens? Like 2016, 2018? No, it was before that. It was like 2008 or something like that, before my time. Anyway, what we're proposing with East Elementary, because it is one of our oldest elementary schools, is to basically demolish the older front portion, auditorium, classrooms, et cetera, but retain the new cafeteria area and build back a new school going from the new cafeteria back. So we're not going to demolish the part of the school that's the newest part, the cafeteria area, but yet build new classrooms, offices, auditorium, gymnasium, et cetera, so that we can bring that up to snuff. And the plan is to build it, to have the capacity to move our preschool over to that campus. So it's closer to the actual parents that are using it in that area. So that is included in the projects in this bond that will be on the ballot November 8th. It's a yes or no vote. We applied for other projects to be included, but they didn't make the cut, and that's another story. So these are the two schools that we propose. Probably looking at actual construction time, new high school will take 4 years. But we're given the funds ahead of time to actually do the planning and design work. So that's helped us get a little jump start. Our bond campaign is when it's successful, not if. So that's basically all I had for the actual presentation, but I would welcome your questions.
Apologize, but my son.
Okay?
So, what are kind of just the bullet points of
2 bullet points. We're replacing 2 of our oldest schools.
talking money-wise and?
Money-wise, well, here's as far as what it's going to cost the taxpayers?
Yes.
Okay, we're looking at a total of, where's the total figures? 134 million. Now, in current tax dollars, the way the county currently figures their tax rate, you're looking at a little less than 3.5 cents. Now, I don't say that if this passes, it's going to cause a 3.5 cent tax increase, because I don't control the county budget. I don't know what their projections will be for tax revenues next year. I don't know what their expenses or what they will do with their budget. So I'm not saying that if this passes, your taxes are going to go up 3.5 cents. The debt service required, these are 20-year bonds that are issued, would be approximately 3.4 cents. Does that help you with your question? Okay. All right. Anything else? Oh, come on, you're making it too easy.
There was one. On this slide, here's a breakdown of the future projects we have planned. Like Gary was saying, if this doesn't pass, it will throw a wrench in this. So looking at Parkwood High, Piedmont High in the future.
We eventually will even come back around to Sun Valley again and totally replace the older hallways and classrooms that were not upfit in the last 2016. So by the time this whole program is done, you will have an entirely new Sun Valley, new Monroe High School, we'll take the newer parts of Piedmont and retain it. There are additions to Porter Ridge, Marvin Ridge, that's utilizing some field house and physical plant upgrades, and a totally new Parkwood and East Union Middle that I mentioned that is, of course, hinges. Please.
Yeah, just one more.
Please.
Is it good? I mean, obviously, there's always discussion about.
Frankly, we do not have capacity issues at Forest Hills High School. It's one of our smallest high schools, not counting CATA because that's specialty. But we do, through a demographer that we've utilized for our last realignment, to forecast what projects we know of and what enrollment we project out 5-7 years. And it's not projected that there'll be a capacity issue, although the new school will have higher capacity than the current school. East Union, that's in a older part of Monroe. So that's not really going to, it's not really impacted in a high growth area, if you will. So that enrollment is pretty stable. Does that help? Now, Parkwood and some of these other areas are different stories.
And the capacity has to do with a lot of times cafeteria size, it's just not big enough, so.
That's the question.
How many buses do we run a day?
We're up to 298 at one point, we brought
Yep.
it down some, I had to find out.
260, something
Yeah,
like
we got-
that.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
Transportation building working out.
Great. Great. Yeah.
Yeah, my dad was transportation director for a long time, he's always
Yeah.
wanted a new facility.
Out in the parking lot, yeah. He's referencing the new transportation center that was part of the 2016 bond. We had a facility that was built like in 1980 when the school system, when it was still a county and a city. Back in those days, there were separate Monroe City schools and Union County schools. They didn't merge till the early 90s. And that bus garage was built back in those days to service, a tenth of the buses that we have now. And so these guys are literally, these buses are sitting out in the parking lot, and these guys are underneath them doing work to them or what have you. So as part of the 2016 bond, we built a new transportation center where all the transportation employees that, take the phone calls when the bus drivers are sick or, Johnny missed the bus or the bus didn't come and all that kind of thing, and maintenance and service work. Did we get delivery of, what did he say, 2 of those natural gas buses? So 2 more coming through grants. So we even have a natural gas refueling station out there now, a wash deck and full repair. So it's a beautiful facility out there off Rocky River Road. Anything else? Any other UCPS? Other questions?
You guys might have early evening.
That's not bad.
Yeah, that's not a terrible thing. I'm ready to get into my comfortables.
Appreciate you guys coming out.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right, next up. Consent agenda. I had a nice conversation. Alex and I had a very nice conversation. Forward and the preliminary talk.
Oh, yay, yay, that makes me happy. We're trying. Oh my gosh, we're trying.
Great, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Good night, or good evening, everyone.
excited. They really worked hard. And continue to work hard.
All right, next up, agenda approval.
Be quick.
All right, 3B.
I'm sure you will. It's just. All I'm saying. That's fine.
Well, they need to ask staff to look at it. Wait, is there a motion?
There was a motion.
You're always ready, right?
Sometimes, yeah.
And we probably had no problem finding the system. Well, you all probably know your way around.
Yeah,
But you're just here today.
I'm pretty used to coming down here now, twice in a row with you guys.
So we don't bite.
You put it on there? Can I see that one more time? Sorry. Okay. So, there we go. So thanks again for having me down. Again, Brett Knipe with NCDOT and Division 10 Engineer. I'm here to continue on our conversations we had at the last council meeting. to talk to y'all about the Idlewild Road project, what our options are moving forward. Thank you, sir. And so, if y'all remember I know maybe some of y'all weren't here, I'm not sure, but, we've had been working with the town for quite some time, trying to figure out what the right approach to the Idlewild Road project was. Really hadn't come to a conclusion, but we needed to make a decision in order to meet our constraints on our timelines. So that's how this conversation got started. We'll go back through just, what we'll cover in the presentation is where we've been in the recent past, semi-recent past. Talk about a possible swap option for the Idlewild project to exchange it for another couple of projects that exist nearby that are in our STIP program. And then just simply to sum it up, it's a couple of just basic choices, although I understand that there's quite a bit of levity to the choice. So I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but just try to present something clear and concise for your consideration. And then, as always, we'll have time for questions. The bulk of the presentation will probably be in bullet 2, where we're talking through what the projects that are at play, what they are and what they might look like. So at least since 2017, we've been talking with the town, trying to establish what the desired outcome is for the collective group. You've heard me say before, if you were here for the last presentation, that NCDOT needs to design projects that will accommodate future years' traffic growth. So 2040, 2045, whatever the horizon year is for our project, that's the target traffic volume that we're shooting for. So we had determined that a 6-lane cross-section was needed on Idlewild Road between I-485 and Stevens Mill Road. And then an interchange design called a DDI would be in place at 485, and then an innovative intersection at Stevens Mill. And I've got some exhibits that will show you again what that looks like. So we were previously unable to get the consent of the town. We understand that there's conflicting interests there between trying to move cars and trying to develop some sense of place that many small towns are seeking. So to this point, we had delayed the project in the draft STIP. We had pushed it a little farther out, simply to buy time, simply to allow folks time to think about it. And we now have the project moving back into our funded side of the program. And so we need to make a decision on what we're designing so we can get forward or move forward and try to meet the fiscal year of 2028 construction timeline, because there's a lot to do between now and actually going to work out there with terms of design and right-of-way acquisition, utility relocation, those sorts of things. Again, I was here on the 26th. We were asking then for some guidance, some decision, and actually had asked for it by the end of the year. But I think very near the end of the meeting, maybe even after I was out of the room, I understand there was a request for us to consider a possible project swap. So we looked into that very quickly. We are at a stage right now where we have the ability to swap projects only because of our STIP being over-programmed recently, and certain projects maybe not being prioritized in the order they were before, or some local priority wasn't met. So we have this very unique opportunity to swap projects. That window closes on October the 28th for NCDOT here in this area. We have to complete our STIP and have all projects identified so that all these other items such as air quality conformity work can take place, so that NCDOT's Board of Transportation can approve it, and then so FHWA can approve it. So there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to have that STIP document ready for approval, which is why we were forced into this very narrow window to potentially consider a project swap. So what we looked at was potentially exchanging the Lawyers Road Interchange project, which is just an expansion of Lawyers Road between Stevens Mill and the interchange itself. So it's a very short project, if you will, primarily an interchange improvement project. In order to potentially meet this October 28th deadline, we snuck into the CRTPO's TTC schedule I presented that there on the 6th to have the TCC tentatively approve the swap pending this council's approval and actually pending Matthews Town Council approval tonight as well. So depending upon the vote tonight, if there's a vote tonight, we would then be able to take this forward to the MPO meeting later on this month where it could be formally approved or not by that body, by that board. So just a quick recap again, this is the U4913 project. That is the Idlewild Road project. I know it's hard to see on here, but this is the currently contemplated design at the interchange at I-485. It's a Divergent diamond interchange. Again, there's a couple around here. We had some of the first in the state. One is at NC 73 and I-85 in Cabarrus County. Another one is at West Catawba Avenue and I-77 in Mecklenburg County in Cornelius. And so, and you'll see in this concept, there's not much improvements to the west of 485. However, at one time, we did have a scope in that project, which is all in the limits of the town of Matthews, that would have included a realignment of Stallings Road and a roundabout here. And I've got an exhibit that I want to show you what that would look like, because as a part of this, we're trying to salvage all the transportation improvements we can and keep our money here locally as opposed to it maybe being absorbed somewhere else should the project go away. So we're going to propose to segment this project potentially and bring it back, bring that westernmost improvement back. I'll show you on the next screen here after this one. This shows the intersection down at Stevens Mill. Again, we'd be carrying 6 lanes from I-485 down to Stevens Mill, and then we're proposing a specialized intersection design at Stevens Mill. It's called a Michigan U-turn. That's a situation where vehicles are allowed to go straight through the intersection, but no left turns would be allowed. In order to make left turns, you would need to travel to one of these U-turn bulbs that are very hard to see because it's such a small image. I apologize. But you would travel down to a U-turn bulb, make a U-turn at a signal, and then proceed back to your destination, whichever that may be. And these conversations we have with really citizens, town councils alike, most folks, they're somewhat taken back by these innovative designs. It's not something that it's easily accepted by the public, we found, because to some it's counterintuitive. Why would you have me turning right so I can go left? But the reality of it is the traffic volumes are such that the intersection can operate with, or the traffic volumes will be such that it will not be able to operate efficiently enough to process the traffic at a minimum standard in the design here. So these designs are coming up in many of our projects. You know, as we project traffic volumes out for future years, we're seeing again and again that conventional intersections simply will not process the traffic volumes that our growing area is bringing to us. And so if we keep doing the same things, we keep building what we call full movement signals, where you can turn any direction from an intersection, you would see failure and gridlock in the future. And that's not really being a good steward of public funds, because it's our jobs as transportation professionals to deliver projects that meet that future demand. So that's kind of a quick plug for innovative intersections like the one we're proposing there. So back to the western side of the U4913 project. Again, this was an original design or concept in the original public meeting maps, where you can see Stallings Road would be realigned at Hooks Road. A roundabout would have been proposed here. But a few years ago, we were doing our best to try to shave costs from all of our projects through value assessment and value engineering work. And we decided to pull this side of the project out and simply just go with just the interchange and not do this realignment work. I would say that this is a better option for us, a little bit more expensive, but still it's a better option. And if the project is being considered for a swap, there would be enough funding left to leave this portion of the project alone, and we could segment the project in the STIP, which would require your approval, would require the CRTPO's board approval. So there's a lot of things moving around at one time for this to be a success, but this is certainly something that we would want to make part of the program if it does go down this path. Really in either way to bring back this piece of the project. And that's something that's new since the last time we've been here. What we would propose to do would be exchange that project, the Idlewild project, for U6170, which is the Lawyers Road interchange project that I described to you a moment ago. This is a high-level concept design. It doesn't have as many vivid colors as the previous renderings you've seen, but essentially it would be to make improvements at the interchange, carrying those down to Stevens Mill, which is just off the screen here. We do believe right now that that's a 4-lane design, but this is preliminary. It's been a while since the traffic analysis work was done, so we're gonna have to go back and look at that one more time to verify that this is in fact what the improvement would need to look like here. And that would require coordination with you guys, potentially Mint Hill, other affected municipalities in the county. So we're trading that out for that project, and there's also enough money to trade out, and this is just the Stevens Mill intersection you can see here. And again, conceptual in nature, this is not the design. We've got to go back and verify what works and what won't. But the other project that's been proposed to swap in would be one of the U2509 segments. U2509 is the Independence Boulevard improvements. It's a series of projects that exist between I-277 and I-485. There's unfunded pieces of that project on parallel routes along Independence Boulevard. Some of those parallel routes are part of the interchanges. As you can see here, this segment, all in yellow, for example, has a parallel route that's integral to the interchange itself that's to be constructed, which is funded. So some of these pieces like this got funded. Segments like C9 that you see right here weren't funded, weren't able to be included in the funded side of the program. This segment over here, C12, again, not funded. There's other pieces up here, C7, that didn't get funded. So in coordination with the town of Matthews, because they're an impacted municipality by this swap, we would be proposing to swap in this segment C9 as well, which is essentially from Sardis to Sam Newell area. So this is what the swap looks like just in graphic form. We would take the U4913B project. That would be the segmented version of the project from the interchange out to Stevens Mill, removing it from the STIP, or at least the funded segment of the STIP, that is, and swapping in the Lawyers Road project and the U2509 segment, which is EA. It would also have to be segmented there and approved by the board at the MPO. That would allow us to keep that proposed A segment intact and staying on schedule as that we currently have right now for the whole project. So here's the quick summary. Again, we're just talking about a swap option, if that's something that you want to consider, where we would swap in the Lawyers Road and the Independence Point Parkway project, and swap out the interchange and to the east segment of Idlewild Road. And you see there, this would require segmentation approval, and the swap would have to be approved by CRTPO. In that case, that segment, again, would become unfunded on Idlewild. The other option, move forward. Yeah, if you swap, the plan right now would be to segment the Idlewild Road project, so the Stallings Road realignment, and that little bit of work can move forward on, yes, correct.
If we use that.
So it could be some combination of things. It could be, where it stood, we think it's within the threshold of a 4-lane roadway. Whether or not all the intersections could remain full movement or conventional design could handle it, that might be the next step, And I really wanted to reiterate that that's not a finalized design by any means. It's a concept, and we still have to do updated traffic analysis to determine what laneage would be needed.
Will we have the opportunity? What I don't want is for us.
Understood.
If your traffic numbers come back and say, no, it's gotta be.
So, no, we would always come back to you, we always come back to the local municipality and coordinate that, because obviously you guys have jurisdiction here, you have a great deal of influence here, and we're trying to be a good partner. Just from my gut, I don't think it's a 6-lane section, but I can't guarantee that, and I can't guarantee that that concept you saw is gonna stick, because it's been a number of years since that work was done. It's an estimate at this point.
Probably. And we would, if it came back as a 6-lane, you would.
That's right, and we
Although
could,
it would be harder to say that.
well, that's, the issue we would run into could be the same scenario, right? If it's not something you want, yet the traffic analysis says we need it to accommodate the traffic to provide that minimum level of service in the design year, that's gonna be true with any project, So this just shows what we could do today based on traffic numbers that were generated a few years ago. This project's been sitting on the shelf for a while.
This is probably not where you
Problem.
want to be.
No, I didn't.
But I think. Off of 485.
Well, in part, that is correct. I mean, the volumes that we project for a segment of roadway, it's based on zoning, it's based on a model that's created, a transportation model that's created that gives us information on future volumes. And so if you project those volumes out and it requires 6 lanes at the interchange, for example, you've got to have somewhere to put those vehicles that are occupying those 6 lanes, right? If that's 2 lanes turning off of 485 and 1 coming through on Idlewild, you just have to have somewhere for those cars to go. So that segment is necessary simply to process traffic at the interchange. The volumes on Idlewild itself are a combination of commuter traffic, folks going, especially going to 485. I mean, that is a significant attraction, if you will, for drivers. So it all plays together, but at the end of the day, the traffic volumes that are projected is what's driving the proposed design.
One, I would hate for us to be.
Got a higher projected traffic volume. So 6 to 4. So it's actually worse than what you just said. It would eventually go from 6 to 2 by the time you got through Stevens Mill. So yeah, and so it happens at Stevens Mill, but it would transition through that intersection to sort of taper down. To taper down If I could find the exhibit.
Stephen? Side conversation is too distracting. No, 4, and then 2, you have a copy of the plan.
Yeah, because I have difficulty getting this thing to cooperate.
From a legal standpoint. It seems like from a legal standpoint. I was saying, Fran, is that better than I did because it was
And I'm not sure what document, you were referencing, but.
that was the Department of Transportation.
Okay.
So.
And, the state departments of transportation have delegated authority to manage, monitor, and maintain the interstate system. FHWA agreement. And so, but in practice, even though I can't cite that law or tell you exactly what it says, in practice, if we've got a situation where we've got cars backing up on the interstate, that is a major safety issue. So we're gonna be pursuing some type of relief valve, no matter what the case. And fortunately, there's not always an easy fix. It could mean just a situation where if you have no project to make improvements with, you may just have to alter signal timing to the point where you're giving all the green time to the interstate ramps and the side street just stays gridlocked. That only works to a point because you have to have some kind of balance. But that, for example, might be what we would do in the absence of any project. Have what?
Because I've seen that in California and Washington.
Alex, is this it? You want me to click it?
It's not it. It's kind of neat, like
That's
they
what you
have,
presented
they have lights.
Ramp meters.
Yeah. And they let
Oh, yes.
That's an emerging technique, and we have contemplated ramp meter projects. Really, it was contemplated for the I-77 South corridor, and could eventually come back as a treatment. But that's a way to meter traffic that enters the flow of traffic on the interstate itself. So not so much getting cars off, but rather getting them on. I am not sure if we have ramp meters, but again, I know it was at one time in a scope of a project for 77, but 77 is a whole different discussion that we don't want to get into right now. It would take up all of our time.
So you're saying
Yeah, I think it could happen, and I've heard, and I'm anecdotally, I don't live in this area, but certainly I've heard recently that backup has occurred, okay? So that's something that we need to investigate, maybe monitor, but it's all wrapped up in what happens with this project, right? If this project moves forward, I feel confident that we've got a solution that would prevent that. So right now, there's not a funded project for that. There are projects that are being evaluated at a feasibility level.
So does that stop at?
Right now, it stops at US 74 at Independence Boulevard.
Okay.
That's the overall project limits, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And it is, and you're absolutely right. There's no doubt it's rushed, and I feel terrible about the rush nature, only for the swap, right? I mean, this swap situation has got a separate constraint that's got us in this corner. My first proposal was to just simply come down and ask you guys, do you want us to move forward with this project? If not, would you work with the MPO to remove it? Because even at that time, I wasn't viewing it as a project that was eligible for a swap because it had nothing to do really with this over-programming of the STIP issue. But after I thought about it, I couldn't figure out a reason to say no. And in the effort of just trying to find some mutually agreeable solution, we figured out a way where we think it could work, but certainly would take your approval.
I wasn't part of this conversation.
A lot of times it's just kind of like
That can be the case, and a lot of it's got to do with timing. I mean, it could come right down to, when is that development gonna get its first CO? Does it meet, any particular ordinance requirements of the local government? And, in this case, if we were moving forward with this project and we felt like we were going to be going to construction in fiscal year '28, and again, we're pressed for time to make that happen at this point, I'm not sure when this development is planned to occur or when the improvements would be planned to occur. But I don't like to see anybody's money wasted, public, private, or otherwise. So, a 4-lane Idlewild would be consumed by a 6-lane Idlewild. It would make no sense to me for someone to commit that kind of time, money, and effort, unless there was some reasonable period of time that you could see those improvements last, some number of years maybe. But that's a decision that I think we could make collectively, Alex, if we get to that point.
So
That's always a difficult process when you don't have willing partners.
Court of Appeals case. Generally a 4-lane cross section.
do you mean fall into the STIP?
Well, I mean, problem there, at the lawyers, like all the data points for 5 years. So, I mean, is the idea there failure rates look to be
Okay.
and it's gonna be in the same failure rate.
So it'd be difficult to give you a definitive answer either way. What I can tell you is that the STIP is developed by projects that are submitted by the MPO, which is made up of, local elected officials and their staff for the technical committees. Those projects, and we also submit projects, and we do that in concert and strategically, so we get our best projects that we can. But those projects have to compete for funding. So, without knowing how that project would score, I can't tell you for sure where and if it would land in the STIP. It'd be impossible for me to predict today. Now, what's happening right now is our next round of prioritization, called spot prioritization, is about to kick off. There's going to be new project submittal slots open. There's also going to be all these other projects, potentially the lawyer's project, depending upon its previous category, that would automatically come in and recompete for all of these funds. And so it's a competitive process.
Talk with Brett's team about this. Prioritize, right? Surely it would. Maybe it would, but there's two factors. One, there might be projects that are even more
Or the funds don't go as far. I think I've heard cost increases in the previous presentation, and that's a big factor in what we're contending with. Well, for any project, generally speaking, if our revenue streams don't change, which by the way, they have changed recently, we've had a little bit of new funds that came to us through the General Assembly. But, absent of any other revenue stream change, if we have a steady stream of revenue, yet the cost of projects keeps going up, that's simply just less projects that we can construct. So, yeah, the U-turn bulbs, and this is called a Michigan U-turn. It's where you can go straight through an intersection.
Could you zoom in on that?
I hit the right button. We've done some studies we can share with you that show that the travel times, especially on the main corridor, are significantly improved. And it's an operational improvement. The side streets, especially if, let's say on an off time of the day, if you've got a very busy time of the day, AM or PM, you could actually improve the side street travel time of navigating the intersection. But during the day, you could probably prove that it might take you a little bit longer to go and circle around. But certainly during the peaks, it's more efficient, and it's actually quicker, and it's certainly safer. That's one of the selling points of those intersections is it reduces the conflict points literally between vehicles, so it reduces crashes.
It uses the red light right there.
Yeah, so this is Stevens Mill running north to south. This is Idlewild Road running west and east.
Yep.
There's a proposed U-turn bulb a few hundred feet downstream of the intersection on either side, where you could go and make a U-turn at a signal. So your protected movement is there. And what this would do would process the traffic through Idlewild Road especially at a much more efficient, rate than a conventional intersection. And
So you couldn't turn.
yeah, you could turn right. I apologize. You could turn right from either leg at the main intersection. It's the left turn movements that are redirected. Correct. Correct.
But if you're coming from your
And the idea is that it operates more efficiently. It processes the traffic quicker, especially in the busiest hours of the day. You'd be able to get through this intersection quicker than if you had to sit there through a big, what we call an 8-phase signal, a multi-movement signal. And it actually takes a much larger footprint to design a conventional intersection, so we would definitely run into additional cost. It looks like we're already skirting this church and certainly don't want to impact any private property more than we have to, but with a wider footprint, you got a substation over here that's gonna get in the way.
So are you taking land?
Well, I'm not sure where Stinson's Farms is, so is it right here on this northwest quadrant, or?
It's far left by,
Okay, so anywhere along Idlewild Road is subject to, a need for that right-of-way acquisition.
I can answer that. They're taking property designed to accommodate.
So the model that we ran is not the most current model that's being worked on right now, but it's the best information we've got today. But what I can say is that trends tell us that traffic volume projections are increasing with each year in most cases. You might find some cases that are closer to deep urban centers where that's dissipated some, and maybe you could find certain cases where the volumes weren't increasing, but trends generally say that we're getting more and more traffic. The Idlewild work?
No,
The lawyers?
right, the Idlewild work.
Okay,
It was
yeah.
done in 2017, 5 years.
No, we'd been working on it all through 2018, 2019, trying to come up, analyzing the small area plan, including that into our analysis, realizing that that actually brought another 50,000 cars a day. I think we covered that last time I was here. So I think we actually just had to make an assumption that that didn't make sense. That's too much. We cut that in half to come up with a 6-lane section. So, it's a couple years old.
Just a couple of years.
But if we were to, I don't know what would change if we were to take another look at the traffic now.
I was just trying to,
Yeah.
the documents that.
From what I know about standing here in front of you today, yes. If I were to step back from this, if we were to postpone for a long period of time, would we have to reconsider something? Possibly. But eventually, we've got to make decisions and move forward. And I'm not saying that to pressure you guys, but from our perspective too, because we've had a lot of projects that were delayed due to funding. And then, we had done all this preliminary engineering work. Well, do you start back over from scratch, or do you take what you had? Because all those processes take so long to crank up and get started.
And
That's right.
It's hard for me to.
Okay. We're coming down to, a lot of. What we're doing tonight is Stevensville edition of not. And if it's not,
Stallings, right.
did I say? Stallings Road.
You threw me for a loop
You
there.
probably knew what I meant though, right?
I was tracking you.
I know.
I think I heard what you meant
Over
at first.
there, the traffic circle, all right, Stallings Road is part of the SWAT. So, no. However, if we say no, later, they'll have lost.
Lawyers.
Lawyers. That's what we're doing, that's kind of complicated, but we have to.
Those ones over there, they have roads that are all four intersections of the same.
I live in Shanamar. That's what we have to be thoughtful about, but that one decision that we have to make. Go through and swap. No, we're not under. Lawyer's part is off the table. Well, realizing that anything after
Only if you chose to get neither. So if you chose to take no action, we would move forward with the Idlewild project eventually.
tonight, or we could, I don't know.
Eventually, if you just never told us anything, we'd have to move forward, or you'd have to coordinate some alternate conclusion with the MPO.
So you would just do any municipality?
I really want to say no to that. That's not true. Now, we wouldn't do that, which is what we're, well, no, so we've already gotten a lot of input from you. We've been negotiating this for years, so we've already gained that input.
Okay, which,
Right. So, but there's a whole elected body made up at CRT, or made up of elected officials at CRTPO, that this project is a part of their overall plan. So in order to do something different, we have to get their consent. Does that make sense? It would have to be CRTPO's decision eventually to do something different with this project. But it starts right here. Yeah. It starts right here. You guys have to say
We
first.
should say swap.
so say we do the swap today.
Yes.
This is my last question, I promise. Sorry. I feel like I'm having to make this decision. So we do the swap tonight. Okay, so I don't even know, I think I know what I'm talking about.
State Transportation Improvement Plan.
Okay, so would you come back in 5 years and say this is a problem?
We would, well, we would.
Is that aggressive to say 5 years?
No, it's not. And every 2 years, we're gonna have a new submittal for new projects, right? And if we know we've got a problem, then us at the division, we can submit for projects. Then they all go into this hopper for competition, right? So but it takes time for projects, number one, to rise to the top in that competition, and then to get funded and go through the process of being
So we
designed and
essentially
constructed.
over a 10-year
It is possible. Possible.
And
Not plausible, but possible.
if we were to swap, we're still gonna get.
Say that again?
Stetson. If we swap. Swap, we get whatever. Yes. Part of the agreement, if anything goes.
Yeah.
I'm here if you want to ask me. There's no.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
They only hit you sewer. As soon as we have sewer, we already be in the construction, we had sewer.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, you have. Okay.
Because I think it needed to be by I move that we approve the swap for 4913.
Yeah. I don't have the document back up.
Idlewild Road for
Independence Point Parkway in Matthews. So we would also, as a part of that proposal, segment the U-4913 project to allow the Stallings Road realignment to move forward.
Okay, so we've got. All right, a motion, and the motion's on the floor, all in favor?
swap of Idlewild Road project for the plus the other Stallings Road segment with the roundabout. Elected officials.
Any other questions?
Everybody on the same page? Brett,
Thank you
does
so
that work
much.
for you?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your
Yeah.
patience.
Yes,
This is
sir.
a big,
Absolutely.
decision for us.
I can understand. Thank you for your work on it. All right, we're good?
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Brad.
You're very welcome.
Closed session pursuant to NCGS. She did. Colleen.
You said call. Call.